So I was muted. It's a good point. It's like an airfoil, but you're not like lift at Mach 3 is you're just a missile, you know.
But we'll still have lift, otherwise it would fall down. If it gets higher, lift, it will rise in elevation.
But
that's why this is so. Yeah, but this is so important, and it's very often left out. That in fact, the density of the air where the plane is flying at steady cruising speed is how the plane stays at that altitude.
Right, it's flown by the air. No, it is a good point, but curving density layers maybe is where we could go. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if the Earth was flat, those density layers would be sort of horizontal all the way. If the Earth is a globe, it would slightly curve around the globe. So the plane would stay in that density layer regardless if the Earth is flat or a globe.
Okay, let's say the Blackbird's trying to do Mach 1, you know, on the deck, on the ocean.
It wouldn't be able to do it.
Right, well, that's why I said Mach 1, so what's it doing? A lot less.
It's not likely that it's got the power to drag to do Mach 1 at sea level.
When all that speed magic happens, yeah, at that altitude with like that shock wave, the engine aspect.
There's only a handful of jets that can actually do any kind of depth into Mach at sea level. Like an F-18 can't go real. I mean, it could barely go Mach 1 at sea level.
Yeah, I suppose the drag forces will be too high.
I mean, some fast sea level Mach planes was like the F-111. They just had a ridiculous power to weight ratio. F-15. I mean, there's a handful of jets that had like just a tremendous amount of thrust to drag at sea level.
Back on airplane specs, which is good.
Jake, are you on an airplane or the plane of Earth? I was curious about your name. Are you a former flat earther, or if you don't mind me asking?
No, I'm a current flat earther.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you.
He's full of shit.
He's full of
shit. Trolling. Yeah.
Oh, darn.
We couldn't wait. Yeah.
He just likes to argue. He comes in.
I guess Jake's
even
not
if he
your
doesn't
name.
know the topic, he'll argue with you.
Yeah, I do like to argue.
No, you don't.
What is your
Yes,
real
I do.
position? You're kind of like on the fence, but think it's like believe it's a globe. But a little on the fence.
No, I've known it was flat for years. I just like to steel man the globe.
There we go.
You know that the boy who cried wolf thing? You kind of risk that, Jake. Like, you say all these things that aren't really the case, and then like now no one takes you seriously, like ever. I mean, I'm not saying no one takes you seriously. I'm saying that's what could happen if you keep doing that.
Yeah, you don't want to learn the magic behind the magic trick, right? It's better to just leave it an enigma, right?
Yeah, misdirection and sleight of hand goes.
Once you learn the magic of the magic trick, it's like lame. The trick, you're like, oh, it's so dumb.
Yeah, there's no way a jet plane flying at Mach speed could stay in sync with the tangential gradient. That's ridiculous. Let's just pretend it's a globe still.
No, Stefan just said it would just stay in the gradient. You wouldn't have to nose down.
Yeah, the density of it, right?
It's hidden in the gradient. Hidden in the gradient.
That's the magic trick. People believe that. They're tricked, that's for sure.
Light does it too.
Density of the air. Okay, so what about the winds? Doesn't matter how high you go. You got the density of the air, even though it's less dense up high.
The Blackbird's like an arrow. I mean, there's lift, but I don't know, keep going back to it.
Well, the thing is there's a tangential gradient of Earth speed. They say it's fastest at the equator, 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, and it tapers up to 0. So there's no way to keep in sync with that. In fact, that jet could get out of sync very easily and just show the Earth spins if it was actually spinning.
How? It would maintain its speed as it takes off, though, with the rotation of the Earth, wouldn't it? If the Earth was rotating.
Yeah. Well, like if it took off at like a place where it was said to be 500 miles an hour, or even 0 at the pole, and then it's just going to be traveling eastward with the Earth at 1,000 miles an hour when it gets there. Is that the density of the air doing that again?
No, the atmosphere rotating with the Earth.
No, it's not even good enough. Even if it wasn't perfect rotation, plus we got winds going in all directions. So there goes that. They say that the atmosphere is not spinning with the Earth. It causes the wind patterns and all that. So it's already not good enough, even if it was as in sync as they like to hope.
All the wind patterns are moving with the rotation of the Earth as well, inside the atmosphere.
Not only in one direction, winds go in all directions. So.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but
Yeah,
in total, that happens within the rotating whole of the atmosphere.
yeah, but that's not even good enough. Even if, as a whole, if it was just slightly out of sync, then it wouldn't work because the pilot just treats the Earth as stationary when he gets there. So, too bad.
Well, if it's strong wind, let's say a side wind, we see this very often flying out with helicopters. Then you have to turn it like maybe up to 45 degrees against the wind to get to your destination. Otherwise, you will be blown sideways away. If you just point your nose at your target as you take off, the side wind will move you a hell of a long way away from your destination.
Yeah, you don't even have to have
do
a
the same.
destination.
You do the same with
Helicopter.
planes. You do the same with planes. If there's a lot of wind, side winds, it needs to adjust and put his nose a bit up against the wind coming from the side.
Yeah, planes and helicopter pilots, they don't have to have a destination. They can just fly wherever they want. Fly all over the place, let the winds take them wherever they want. And they can always treat the Earth as stationary no matter where they land.
I have a question for you, Stefan. How do you know when they have those cosmic winds? How do they tell the difference between wind and cosmic wind?
That's so off the point.
What?
They would love to argue with you about cosmic winds affecting airplanes. When planes can't even land if it's a spinning ball. I was on a better point. The winds would just not even be allowed. They would be way more than any Coriolis effect. It doesn't matter. You got to be landing on 1,000 mile an hour stationary surface. It doesn't make any sense. It can't be moving with the eastward tangential gradient. Yeah, find that if you want to talk about it. But I was on a point that they couldn't answer, and then they have an answer for your cosmic winds. They'd love to talk to you about that because it avoids what I was talking about.
Well, what's the problem with the wind and the atmosphere rotating with the Earth and planes changing
not even
speed?
said to be.
Let's say it would take about 12
hours.
It would take about 12 hours to fly from the North Pole to the equator. So if you started with almost 0 tangential speed, so and you were flying south, then the wind, which is rotating faster and faster as you get towards the equator, tangential speed, that will give an effect on the plane, moving it. So the plane would slowly, what is it, 0.0 or is it 0.3? Well, it's hardly any acceleration at all that it needs to keep up with the rotation of the Earth, pushed by the atmosphere.
So that's your claim. It's just the winds. It's not the pilot doing anything. It's just the winds that make him in sync with the Earth. Is that your claim?
I didn't say the wind. The rotation of the fact that the atmosphere is rotating with the Earth. slower
Okay,
at
so but you said winds.
way up and faster to tangential speed towards the equator. So
Yeah,
it
but you
used
say
to be a
wind.
very slow acceleration for the plane sideways to go from the almost zero tangential speed at the North Pole to get to the equator.
Yeah,
And
so
that would
wait,
take
well, I'm
about
trying to
flight
clarify
would
your
take
way
about
real
12
quick.
hours.
Stefan, real quick. Don't just talk louder so you cannot hear a question. You're saying that the pilot does the correcting to make the plane go 1,000 miles an hour eastward? Or are you saying the winds push the plane 1,000 miles an hour eastward as he's going forward at maybe like in a Cessna at 200 miles an hour?
If, as my example, if you were flying straight from North Pole towards the equator,
Yeah, at 200 miles an hour in a Cessna.
the tangential speed at the North Pole is as good as zero, and about 1,000 miles
Yeah,
at the equator. So over
right.
time, and yes, and as you move further south, you would have a
Yeah.
very slight acceleration sideways, pushed by
Cool.
the wind or the
When you
atmosphere
said,
as you
hold
move
on, you
south.
said you would have, when you say you would have a slight acceleration, are you saying that the pilot makes the slight acceleration?
No,
Or are you
it's just
No,
saying the
like
winds
it's just
do it?
like a side. It's just the same reason how like a slight breeze can move an aircraft across the runway
Oh,
during
wind.
landing.
Okay. No, hold on, wait. Just don't butt in for Steven because I'm trying to get what Stefan's actual claim is. You're
yeah, he
saying the
gave a good
winds,
example
is
of
it the
how I
winds,
tried
the
to
slight
explain it.
breeze? Are you saying it's the pilot that makes the acceleration sideways
No,
to go faster eastward? Which one are you saying? Is it the
no,
winds or the pilot? Which one?
the wind or the rotation of the atmosphere.
The
Call it
winds.
wind if you
Okay,
want.
so winds
Call it wind.
winds go
It's a
eastward.
increasing. You could call it like an increasing side wind as you move further south.
Okay, so eastward winds. What if he has heavy westward winds one day compared to another day when it's not heavy westward winds?
But then
Yeah,
you're
but
talking about local
there's never
phenomena
westward wind.
inside the whole of the atmosphere. You have to
Huh?
discern between the two.
Yeah, it's going to be winds
Yeah,
relative to the surface.
that's what you have to do because you have winds going in all directions and
Yes,
different every
it's
hour, every day.
inside.
So how are the winds? How is the eastward winds averaging out to push the plane sideways when it's in a Cessna only going forward at 100 miles an hour? And now he's all of a sudden going eastward at 1,000 miles an hour when he's only traveling forward at 100 miles an hour. And
The,
now he's going
When
eastward
you're
as well as
flying,
forward,
wind pattern
100 miles
within
an
the
hour
atmosphere
forward
is
and
rotating with the
eastward. He's
Earth. You
going
can have
eastward at
local.
1,000 miles an hour. And then he's going to two-thirds of
Don't you
stationary and
understand
keep
that if
rotating. How is the plane going to rotate with the Earth eastward? What if he's facing westward
Dude,
even?
it's the same thing as
Now the winds, the
thrusting
slight
inward,
because
winds
the
dude.
whole of the
they've got to
atmosphere
carry
is
that. Hold on,
moving,
don't
and
yell over
within
me.
the
Let me finish my point. The point is that the winds, the slight winds, whatever that atmosphere wind you want to call it, is going to have to carry the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour as he's traveling forwards to slow down in a westward direction to treat the Earth as perfectly stationary. Is that your claim?
so wind is always
The
no,
winds
measured
are the
on
winds are
ground
carrying
speed.
the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour.
The wind is always
there's a
measured
concept
on ground
of
speed. So if you
momentum.
have
Yes,
100 miles wind, that means the air is moving 100 miles per hour compared to ground. And if
Yeah, the
you're
ground is
flying in a
stationary compared to a stationary ground.
you're flying in a fluid medium. So
Yeah, a
you
stationary
are
ground
basically
compared to a stationary ground.
it doesn't
If it was a
matter
moving
the
ground, it'd be a
ground.
totally different number.
Okay, can you shut up while I'm talking? You were also talking. So when you're flying just relative to the Earth. The ground has
Yeah,
nothing to do. That the ground is completely irrelevant for the plane until the point where it has to land. If you're, for
yeah.
example, in a hot air balloon, you don't feel any
Uh-huh.
wind in that hot air balloon
Well, I'm not
basket
feeling it.
because you're moving with the air, and the air is rotating with the Earth. So it's
Believe me, I
just
get the
the
concept. I get the
relations, it's
concept.
just
I'm
the
breaking the
differential
concept down.
speed that is
I'm
relevant.
telling you.
If
I'm
the
telling you
if
why the
the air
concept
is
doesn't
moving with
suffice.
1,000 miles per hour at
You
the
don't have to repeat
equator,
it over and
and
over
the
again.
differential speed between you and the air is zero, you don't feel anything.
I'm not talking about feeling it. You're a little bit behind.
But
It's there's a thousand. Wait, hold on, wait. No,
feeling is
listen.
resistance in
Steve,
air. If you
don't
don't
just yell
feel it,
over
there
me.
is
You
no
have to let me
energy
make my
involved.
point. Let me explain this to you, okay? The scenario is he takes off from the North Pole, right? He's just a free riding pilot. A free flying pilot. He has no destination. He's going to travel all over the place, right?
Okay,
He's
how
going to
quick
land.
is the
He's going to
traveling?
land. He's going to land somewhere at the equator,
How quick is
where
the
the plane
traveling?
needs. Where the plane. Don't start talking over me. Where
No,
the
no, no.
plane needs
Just
to
give
be
me
in
more
perfect
details.
rotation with an
How
eastward
fast
rotation.
is he
Zeus,
traveling?
do
Hey,
not
how
talk
fast?
over me.
Can
Dude,
you
just
just
let him
give me some
finish. Let him
details?
finish, and then ask your questions, man. This is like chaos right now. I can't hear shit.
The plane is going to be just joyriding, right? The pilot's going to be flying wherever he wants. He's doing big loops all over the earth, but he's only going about 100 miles an hour forward, right? And he's going to
Okay,
be
100
going
miles.
about mostly west southwest, and then he has no destination. He's going to land in a clearing about at the equator where they have to be moving with the earth eastward at exactly the same speed as the earth, backwards if he's facing westward as he slows down to land. You're saying that the winds are carrying the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour as he slows down to land in a westward direction? Is that what your claim is? Really?
So if you're flying south and the differential speed between you and the wind is 1,000 miles per hour between the start and the destination, by traveling 100 miles per hour, you would have to travel 62 hours, which means over these 62 hours, which are just a second, 3,750 minutes, you have to accelerate 1,000 miles. That means every 3 minutes, the wind is shifting you 1 mile per hour quicker to the one side. So this acceleration over 3 minutes, 1 mile per hour acceleration, is something that you cannot feel, and you will
I'm not
not
talking about
be
feeling it.
able to detect while you are flying. So you are just flying south. That you are slightly shifted to the left side or to the right side doesn't matter. So you're shifted eastwards. So because the Earth is moving eastwards, is nothing that anyone has to be worrying about, because every
Well,
three
no,
minutes,
because, okay,
1 mile per
go ahead.
hour quicker to the left side. Doesn't matter.
Okay, now let me make the retort to that. There's
Got it.
3 points, first of all. Let me get 3 points out. First of all, the Cessna is only going at 100 miles an hour forward, right? He has no destination, so he's not correcting for anything, right?
Yes,
They're going to
yes.
be heavy westward winds blowing him all over the place, and he can let the winds take him wherever he wants because he has no destination, right?
But
So
the
you're
orientation
saying that
stays.
there's an equal. Hold on, don't talk over me. I got 3 points. First of all,
Yeah, wait a second.
you're
Can I
saying that
ask
there's
a question?
one
The first
dominant west
point.
eastward wind. We don't have one dominant eastward wind pushing a plane, accelerating it up to 1,000 miles an hour when he's only traveling forward at 100 miles an hour the whole time, going wherever he wants. He's doing big loops. He's going back to his original destination, which means then you have to think about the wind pushing the left side of the plane and then the right side of the plane to keep it in perfect sync with the ground, which is always stationary relative to the plane's movement. So if you talk about ground
Oh,
speed, it's the plane's movement in relation to a stationary ground. If it was in relation to a moving ground with a tangential gradient, those numbers wouldn't be the same even to begin with, right? So that's the second point. You wouldn't even have the same reading. You wouldn't have relative to the ground that's not stationary. It's relative to a stationary ground. That's the only reason that it reads the way it does. It's stationary. The only way it can land on it is because it's stationary. You don't have the plane being pushed back by the wind backwards at 1,000 miles an hour when he
can you
started with
come to your
zero
point
tangential
three?
velocity. The only reason we talk about conserve momentum or we talk about Coriolis or anything, because it's detached from the Earth, right? So if you want to say he's going to land at the same latitude, you say it's because he was on the ground and he's traveling at 500 miles an hour or whatever. That's why he was able to land as if it's stationary, not because the air is pushing him with the Earth. And the atmosphere is not even said to be in lockstep, and it would have to be in perfect lockstep to even imagine something like the wind keeping him in sync at all, and it's not even in sync enough with the globe plane. So it wouldn't work even if it was perfect, and we didn't have westward wind going heavier one day, and then having that eastward wind compensate perfectly over it. It's ridiculous and asinine. It breaks your globe to try to
So that
justify it when you got people in the air in a big tube, a big metal tube. To imagine that the wind is carrying this big metal tube backwards so that the pilot can be safe to land on what he considers always to be a stationary ground is asinine.
Okay, are you done
Well, it
with your 3
seems like
points?
he's forgetting. Yeah, it seems like he's forgetting that wind is a local phenomena inside the atmosphere, while the atmosphere is rotating.
Not
And
forgetting that at
I
all,
mean,
but it makes no
that's not a
difference.
problem.
Didn't
And
But
forget
that's
that at
wind,
not a
all.
problem, is
wind
it?
is
Has
just
nothing to do
related
with
to
my point.
ground.
I didn't forget anything about winds. I was
Well,
saying winds are pushing him wherever. Local phenomenon. Why is that something that
let's
makes
just
your
think about
point
this
any better?
let's think about this logically perspective. Let's imagine that there was no wind at all. Let's imagine an imaginary day where there's no wind anywhere, right? You stick out, you lick your finger, and you stick your finger out. You don't feel wind in any direction. And then
Yeah, that's when it's in perfect sync. They say.
if you and if you were to take a balloon, if you were to take a balloon with a little tiny fan to propel it along like a helium balloon, then obviously as it moved from the pole to the equator, the relative mass of the air that's moving with the surface of the earth, so that there's zero relative wind to the surface of the earth, that balloon would accelerate all along its path. That might take days or whatever. It would slowly be accelerating in that mass, the same way as a boat that's crossing a river, right? If a boat is crossing a river that's flowing down, the moment that boat enters into the fluid stream, that boat's going to be moving sideways at the speed of the river, right?
Yeah, but the thing is the river doesn't have the same amount of air or current going the opposite direction, many different speeds, right? Even if your scenario was perfect, right, you still got winds going in all directions that are going to mess it up, right? So it's not going to be going with the air, which they don't even claim to be in lockstep. They say that the air, when there's no wind, that's the only time it's ever in sync, right, with the earth. So you're saying that the no wind is what's moving,
What
what's
are
Even
you
accelerating
if
this
you had,
talking about
balloon
in
or the
sync?
plane at 1,000 miles an hour. You're saying that the Cessna is going to be moving eastward at 1,000 miles an hour when he only can go forward at 100 miles an hour. Now he's accelerating east.
Oh
He's
God.
accelerating up to 1,000
yeah,
miles an hour, and he doesn't even know it. That's ridiculous.
You're always talking about in sync. If you have no wind, the air is moving exactly the same speed with the ground. There is
Right.
nothing
The no
to
wind
sync.
is what's
Wait a
supposed
second.
to be accelerating the
There is
plane.
nothing to sync about. There is nothing
No,
to
no, I'm
sync
not.
up
No, what
with,
I'm talking
because
about is in
you
sync is
are
the
just
plane.
moving
The
in
plane
that
would have to be
fluid.
in
You
perfect
are
sync.
just moving in that fluid medium. And if the
That's
fluid
the
medium
concept.
is moving to the left, you are also moving to the left. If the fluid medium is moving to the right, you're moving to the
Yeah,
right.
that's the
You
I
are
get the
in the
concept,
medium.
but the
The
dynamics
ground
of that, that's a kinematic concept.
ground speed
Right.
only becomes relevant once you have to touch down, and that touch
Yeah,
down is
right.
highly affected by side winds. Have you ever
Yeah, but
seen an
okay,
airplane landed
snooze.
like sideways because they have
Okay,
side
yeah.
wind? And
Okay,
again,
snooze. First of
the
all, side
difference
winds
the
and the earth
difference
moving are two different things.
acceleration is
Side winds and the
minute.
earth moving are two different things.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
not the same. Side winds are not the same as the earth moving. If the
Of
earth were
course,
moving at
it's
a
not
thousand
the
miles an
same,
hour
because
and
the
he
earth
wasn't in
moving
perfect
has
sync,
is
the reason I
nothing
talk about
compared
perfect
to
sync is
side
because
winds.
the plane would have to be in perfect sync. That's the reason I talk about sync. The winds don't have to be in perfect sync. They're not even said to be in perfect sync. And they would have to be moving the plane to be in perfect sync. And that's where your dynamics fail. You can't just kinematic concept your way out of this. Oh, we're just
So
thinking
no,
about the air mass making him go faster, but he doesn't even know he's going faster, but it's only a Cessna plane going forwards at 100 miles an hour. But he doesn't know that the winds made his plane go eastward with the rotation to 1,000 miles an hour from
yeah.
zero. That's ridiculous.
So no wind at the equator means 1,000 mile an hour winds and perfect uniform east to west or west to east. Okay.
Yeah, they want to call it air mass and not call it winds because
yeah, that's right.
if it's in perfect sync, then there's no winds, right?
That's
It's
right.
just
I
the
don't.
atmosphere in
That's what I
perfect
was saying.
sync.
On my imaginary day
They
where
have to
there is no
talk around
wind,
it. They have to talk around
Yeah.
it because it doesn't make any dynamic sense.
no, it makes perfect sense. What do you mean?
Well, I
I
think
mean
that
that there would have to be a perfect wind that pushes the plane only eastward, and it would have to be in perfect sync with the Earth without any other winds going in the opposite direction, which we have all the
Yeah,
time.
so
And it
what
would
if
have to
there's a
be,
small
wait
50
a minute,
mile per
Cessna
hour wind?
plane's not even made, Cessna plane's not even made to go more than 300 miles an hour forward, which is a vector that has nothing to do with this imagined eastward vector of any kind of conserved momentum or any kind of instinctness at 1,000 miles an hour backwards as he's flying forward to float on the land. It's just a concept that you have to hold in your head to keep your spinning ball alive. But it wouldn't
No,
work. It would be
the
dangerous. Every
the
plane would
airplane speed
crash.
capabilities are just based on what it can fly through the fluid with. That's all that it's based on. So if you
I'm
have
not
a
talking about,
fluid
yeah,
that's
the
moving
winds a
at a
thousand
thousand
miles an
miles per
hour
hour
is
at
that,
the equator,
yeah.
that airplane would not see that as any different as flying at 0 miles per hour.
That's what your concept is. That's ridiculous, but it doesn't
That's
make
not
any sense
ridiculous.
anyway.
That's just
It doesn't even.
it's the
Not
same
only
reason. It's
it's
literally the
ridiculous,
same reason why.
and it wouldn't even work. Your globe doesn't even claim that there's a lockstep atmosphere. It doesn't even claim to be right. So you
It's
don't
not
even have a
it's
claim
not
to go on.
perfectly lockstep, but there's still the no slip
No,
condition at the surface.
at the very surface, which has nothing to do with planes.
Yeah, but that transfers up through the intermolecular bonds up,
No, it doesn't.
going
You
up
know
further
better.
up. Of course it does.
Intermolecular bond. It's just adding words to a concept that's not even claimed on your side. The globe doesn't even claim to be in sync, right? That's where they say the
It's not
winds come from
perfectly in
anyway.
sync.
So it wouldn't work. It has to be in perfect
It's
sync.
not perfectly in the sync in the same way that when you're in a passenger plane at 600 miles per hour, there's still currents in there, right? Because there's air ventilation in there, right? You can feel the wind blowing on your face from the venting system, right? So you might have like a 5 mile per hour or 8 mile per hour, air current in the plane, but
Yeah.
but the majority of the wind in the plane is traveling in the direction of the plane. That's why you can just take off a drone from your tray table, fly it all around the plane, and land it back on your thing as if the plane was stationary, even when it's traveling at 600 miles per hour. It's no different.
Yeah, you don't have a tangential gradient of 0 to 1,000 miles an hour flying your drone around inside the plane.
Yeah, but imagine if that drone had to slowly accelerate to that tangential velocity over a period of like 6 or 12 hours.
Wait, so it's a
Yeah,
container?
well, that's the
You're
thing.
talking
There's no
about you're
destination.
talking about like
There's
a
no
1 mile per
destination. This
hour
guy,
increase,
he's
right? That's
letting the
less than
winds
how much
take him
a
wherever he
slight
wants.
change in the breeze would blow your drone around. That's way
A
less than
change
what
in
a
the
slight breeze
breeze.
would blow your drone
A
around.
change in the breeze is accelerating the Cessna plane that flies forward at 100 miles an hour, flying
Yeah,
wherever he wants.
it's
This
literally no
slight
different
breeze
than
is gonna
literally no
add up
different
to
than a
a
boat
thousand
crossing a
miles an
river.
hour. I mean, I'm not laughing at you. You should be laughing at yourself for claiming that.
No,
This
I mean
slight breeze is going to make
it's
the
just
Cessna
basic fluid
plane
dynamics. It's
eastward
no
in
different
sync.
than a boat crossing a river. That's all that it is.
So then as the plane slows down facing westward, right, and it's slowing down from 100 miles an hour to 50, and it's gonna
It's
hit the
slowing
ground here.
down
And it's
relative to the
treating it
ground,
stationary.
though. It's not
Are
slowing down
you
relative to the
pretending?
surface of.
The
It's
ground
not
would be
slowing
moving,
down
right,
relative to the rotation of the Earth. It's slowing down relative to its position over the ground.
over the ground, which would be moving at 1,000 miles an hour compared to
Yeah,
0 where he
it's
took
flying
off
in an
from.
air mass that's also moving at 1,000 miles per hour along with the
Right.
ground.
So that's what you're claiming. So you're saying that this air mass now is carrying the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour as he slows down to land on a surface that he treats as perfectly
Just
stationary.
just don't think about an airplane. Just think about a balloon, like a hot air balloon, right? It's just going to be moving
No,
at whatever speed the wind is moving, right? If the
you.
wind is moving, if the wind is 1,000 miles per hour relative to some point further up in absolute space, the balloon is just going to travel at that speed within that air mass.
We're talking about a plane landing on a perfectly stationary Earth, bro. You are a
We're
flat
talking
earther.
about a balloon.
You're just arguing for the globe. You can't actually believe what you're saying right now. You're just playing the devil's advocate for the globe again,
Hold on a
because
second.
you can't actually believe that.
Imagine if there was a
It wouldn't
thousand
work
mile per
anyway.
hour air mass
It's not even
flying.
what the globe claims, bro.
Imagine if there's a balloon flying in an air mass that's going 1,000 miles per hour in one direction, and underneath it there was a conveyor belt that was also moving at the same speed as that air mass. That balloon
Yeah.
would just all they'd have to do is just descend that balloon, and it would just touch down onto that conveyor belt like nothing, right? Even though
Yeah, but the
both are
thing
moving
is
at
the
a thousand
globe
miles
doesn't
per
even
hour, it's
claim that.
irrelevant because the balloon is flying in the air mass, right?
Yeah, but the globe doesn't even claim perfect lockstep.
An
So
argument.
you're already dead right there. The globe doesn't even claim a perfect lockstep, and so you're already dead. You can't
Does it have to
argue
be?
it
Hold
because
on,
the
hold on.
plane
Does it have to
treats it
be
as
perfectly live?
perfectly stationary. Yes,
What if there's a
yes, it
five?
does,
What if there's a
and
5
it wouldn't
per
work
hour
anyway.
difference? What if there's a 5 mile per hour difference between the air mass over the conveyor belt and the speed of the conveyor belt. Can the balloon still land safely on the conveyor
plane.
belt?
Let's talk
Can
about the balloon. Why do you? We're talking about a plane landing on a
a
perfectly
plane has
stationary
massive
Earth
surface
at
area,
any
right?
angle.
Planes
At
get
any
blown
angle,
around by
right?
the wind in the same way planes get tossed around in the wind, and in the same way that a balloon does, right? It has a massive cross-sectional area, right? So if there's a sideways, I mean, you've seen videos of planes flying sideways when they're landing in heavy wind, right? They're literally
Yeah,
flying
winds
in
are
the air.
totally
They're
different.
being pushed by the air
Winds are
mass
totally
in the
different than
same
the
exact
Earth
way that a
moving.
balloon is, right?
Yeah, if there's wind's blowing the plane in one direction and the Earth is moving in another direction, that's two things to deal with, not one.
Yeah, but what's that relative difference? That's just the same as a crosswind, right? That
No,
difference
it's
when they're
not, because the
landing.
wheels
That's
would
why.
break
That's
off.
why planes. That's why
The
planes have
stationary
strict
surface.
crosswind.
No,
Planes have
it has
strict
to be a
crosswind
stationary
component
surface.
limitations, right? A plane cannot land
No,
on a runway if the crosswind exceeds a certain amount. They have to go to a
right.
different airport.
Again, it would be a totally different thing. If it's dealing with crosswinds and landing on a stationary Earth, that's one thing. If it's dealing with crosswinds and landing on a moving Earth or any kind of moving Earth, and it's not in perfect sync at any
It
angle
doesn't
with
have
the
to be in
eastward
perfect sync. It
direction,
just has to be
it
within the
does. It
crosswind
does. Winds aren't
component.
the same.
It
Nope,
doesn't have to
winds
be
are
in
not the
perfect
same.
sync.
They're
It
The
just
not.
has to
crosswind
be
You
is
within the
can't.
cross.
moving with
Listen,
the rotation of.
the winds and the rotation are totally different. You can't
But
say they're the
you
same.
agree? Hold on.
You
You
would
agree
break the
that
wheels up. Even at 5 miles an hour, the wheels would break off, bro.
The
you
You
hold on.
can't
You
have
side
a
wind is
agree?
moving
perpendicular
Hold on. Hold
the
direction.
on. Look,
rotation of the Earth.
you agree? You agree that you can fly the drone in an airplane no problem at 600 miles per hour, right? A little handheld palm drone that just
Has
lands on the palm
nothing to
of
do.
your
It's
hand.
total non
You
sequitur. Has
agree?
nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Nothing to do with it. Total non sequitur. I agree, but it has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
So what is the problem with like a side wind moving with the whole of the atmosphere inside the atmosphere, which is rotating with the Earth? What's the problem?
I didn't say there was a problem with the side wind. I'm saying that's your problem. You can have winds going in all
No, it's
directions,
not
so
a
the air is
problem at
not going
all
to. It's
because
not
that
going to
side
carry the
wind
plane
is
perfectly because there's going to be
because
heavier
that
side winds in all directions any day of the week. Right? You're
because
not going to have heavier winds one day and lighter winds in another day, and have the atmosphere somehow calculated so it's going to move the plane. And the atmosphere is not even said to be in sync anyway, so you can't even
but
claim that.
the local weather conditions are rotating within the whole of the atmosphere. So that's no
That's the
problem with
concept.
having
Doesn't
local
matter.
differences within
I'm not saying that's a
the
problem.
atmosphere rotating with the
You're
Earth.
misrepresenting what I'm talking about. I'm not even saying there's a problem with winds. I'm saying that the Earth is stationary. The only way the plane
No,
could
it's
always
no.
treat it as stationary is because it's stationary. You can't have the winds or the atmosphere that is no wind because it's in sync and it's not in sync, or it's kind of in sync, it's almost in sync, it's overall in sync. All these estimation words are no bueno for a plane that's trying to treat the Earth as stationary when you're landing, bro. You're not going to ever be depending
But
on
the
that. We got
plane
people's
takes
lives in
off
the hands of the pilot who treats it as stationary because it's stationary. If it was moving, it would be relative to a moving surface.
because if you think if there was no wind, that the atmosphere where he's going to is going to change the speed of the plane due to
What?
the rotation
The
of the
speed what?
atmosphere.
Eastward? The speed of
So
the plane
that
forward or the
means
speed of the plane eastward?
so that would mean that the air would be stationary relative to the ground wherever
Okay,
you go.
stationary air is what pushes the plane faster, huh? The
which
stationary
is
air makes the
actually
plane go faster eastward, huh?
stationary air is the same speed as the rotation.
It's
Yeah, and that's
That's
what
the
literally no
pushes
point.
the plane
different than
faster and
flying.
faster eastward.
It's literally no different than flying the handheld drone in an airplane at 600 miles per hour. The
It is
fact that your
No,
plane is
total non
moving at
sequitur,
600
not
miles
at all
per
the
hour
same.
is irrelevant to
Not
your
at all the
ability to
same.
fly it all
I
around the
hear
cabin
you.
and land it back on your tray table where you took it off from. You're not worried about the fact that the plane is going 600 miles per hour. It's just as if
We
you were sitting
understand.
on. Is it just as if you were
Jake,
sitting at the gate,
Jake,
not moving? It would be no
just
different
saying
at
it
all.
over again doesn't make it relevant. Are you dependent on a
Well, why do you
wind
not see this?
pushing your
Why do you not
drone?
see this
Hey,
as
are you
relevant?
dependent? Listen, are you dependent on a wind pushing your drone to be in sync with the tray table?
But we know that's what happens because there's a no slip condition with the surface of the earth.
No
That's a
slip
basic
condition is
part
you got taken
of
care of.
fluid mechanics.
You lost this argument with whatever his name was the other day about the no slip. The no slip doesn't apply at altitudes. The no slip, we don't have a no slip. We have no fucking movement. But you want to say there's a no slip. Even if there was a no slip, it would be a slight at the very surface. It wouldn't at all push the plane, dude.
Let me ask you something. If I start spinning a bucket full of water in it, does the water eventually start spinning at the speed of the bucket?
Oh my God, Newton's bucket. You guys are not going to bring up Newton's bucket for the globe, dude. That just proves there's an absolute reference
back
frame.
to the equator.
Ridiculous.
The equator,
Newton's
there's
bucket.
no wind.
Oh, explain to the pilot that's just training how the winds are going to make him in sync so he can land safely. I want to hear that.
I mean, it's literally no different than flying the drone in the plane. I don't know why you don't see that. It's
I
the
just
same.
told you why it's different, because you're not dependent upon the winds making the drone and the plane perfectly in sync with your tray table.
Yeah, but we know that. But we know that even winds aloft have their limit as to how different they can be with the surface of the Earth. Right? There's no 1,000-mile-per-hour winds aloft.
If the Earth were moving, dude, he would have to have a moving surface reading and his plane, so he would know how fast eastward the Earth is moving compared to his plane moving eastward, so that he could land safely. That would be very
Plane is just
critical.
flying through an air
If it
mass
was
in the
slightly
same way that
off,
the drone is
air
flying in
mass,
an air mass
that's just
in
a
the airplane
That's just the
at cruising
concept. You
speed.
don't have lockstep. The globe doesn't even claim lockstep, so that's not even
It
a
doesn't
good
have to be
claim.
lockstep. It just has to
It
be
would, because
within the
it's
crosswind
perfectly
component
stationary.
limitations of the airplane.
It's perfectly stationary. That would have to be perfect lockstep.
No, it doesn't.
And
It
it
just
still
has to.
wouldn't work.
The wind just has to be within the crosswind components that are published for that aircraft.
And
That's the
it
only
would be
requirement for the plane
in
to land.
relation to a moving surface. It would be a plane in relation to a moving surface that has a
Yeah,
tangential
just like
gradient
landing the
of 0
drone,
to
just like
1,000 miles
landing
an
the
hour.
drone on your tray table at cruise speed is in relation to a tray table that's moving at 600 miles per hour. Yet for the pilot that's flying the plane inside the airplane, it's no different than when he's sitting stationary at the gate. Whether he's at 600 miles per hour at cruise or sitting stationary at the gate makes no difference on how he flies that plane and the drone
Well,
in
if you
that
want to
plane.
use that comparison, it would be more like that you have to fly the drone out the window of the plane to another plane that's moving much faster, that's way further away, and he's got
Why
to
would that
now
be? Why
somehow
would that be
sync
the
up to
case?
the new plane speed to be able to land on that plane speed, because it's 1,000 miles an hour difference between the plane you're in and the plane you're landing on.
No, because in the globe model, there's viscous coupling, just like we know in fluid mechanics. There's viscous coupling between the air molecules and the surface of the Earth, and there's no friction.
Dude, you're not going to
And
get
there's
away
no
with
friction on
viscous
the other end of the
coupling.
pressure gradient
Viscous
that's holding it
coupling?
back.
You're saying that the pilot depends on this idea of viscous coupling, making the whole of the air mass in lockstep when they don't even claim it's in lockstep?
But you want to make it sound like it's ridiculous. But if you look at the planet
It is
Jupiter with a
ridiculous. That's
telescope,
why.
if you look at the planet Jupiter with a telescope, you can see the fluid on the surface of Jupiter moving with the rotation of that planet, right?
Jupiter's fucking, oh my God, that's where you're going to? Because you can see the fucking
That's
Jupiter
something
in
in our
sync? Oh my
reality, right?
God.
That's not
That
that's
should
not
make the
something made
pilot
up.
in
That's something
training
that we
very,
can.
very much less nervous about the rotating. He's going at a Cessna at 100 miles an hour forward. Now, just to let you know, now your plane's going to be moving eastward at 1,000 miles an hour, and I know the plane's not made to go that fast, but your air is going to viscously, the viscous coupling is going to make you moving backwards at 1,000 miles an hour in perfect sync with the eastward rotation, even though we don't claim the
Well,
atmosphere
let
is
me
in
ask you
lockstep.
this: what
Don't worry
force
about
would be
that. Just slide
preventing?
your plane forward and land on the
Backwards
surface
in
like
relation.
it's
Hang on.
perfectly stationary,
Backwards in
even
relation
though
to
we
what?
have no mechanism to make that even possible. But that's what the globe says. So just pretend like it's moving and then treat it as stationary, and then you're all set. You can just have your globe and fly and land on it like it's stationary. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, makes sense.
So
And
you,
a
what is the
container.
problem?
And contained. A closed system that's
But
stationary.
what is the different? I mean, what's the problem if the atmosphere
The
is
problem is it's
rotating with
1,000
the
miles
Earth?
an hour difference.
If the our atmosphere is moving with the rotation of the Earth, then there's no
Not in
problem, isn't it?
lockstep. Not in lockstep. Not even claimed to be in lockstep. So even that claim doesn't work.
So
Does
so
it
how
have
much
to
The
be in
the
pilot
lockstep,
treats
difference?
or
it.
does it have
The
to
Okay,
be
pilot
within
treats it as
the crosswind
perfectly
components of the
stationary,
airplanes?
and they do not claim perfect lockstep. Anyway, and there's westward winds going the
Does it
opposite
have to be
direction,
in a mouth
northern
step, or
winds.
does it just have
All
to be
kinds
within the
of things are
crosswind
going to be
components
blowing
that
them
the
up.
airplane is rated for?
No. The atmosphere does not claim to be in lockstep. They're not claiming that, so it wouldn't work, even if it were
How
to have
far
no
out of
westward wind.
lockstep is it? How far out of lockstep is it?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Of course it
Even
matters.
a smidge.
Is it 1
Even
mile
a
per hour out
smidge
of
would break
lockstep?
the wheels
1,000
off.
miles per hour out of
Even a
lockstep? How
smidge.
far out of
Even a
lockstep is
smidge.
it?
Even a smidge would be. Even a smidge would be too much because the wheels would break off the plane. The Earth is never moving eastward at a different rate than that 1,000-mile-an-hour jet that you're talking about that can move as fast as the Earth in the opposite
So
direction.
how is it that a plane can land in an air mass that's trying to blow it sideways at 30 miles per hour, but the plane can still land and not
Because
break
the
the
Earth is
wheels off?
stationary. Because it's stationary. That's why.
I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
But yet you can
to
fly
think that the
yet
Earth
you
is
can fly.
stationary just like
Yet
it seems is
for the same
ridiculous.
reasons
Yeah,
why it doesn't
that's
matter
ridiculous.
whether the yet for the same reasons why it doesn't matter whether the drone can fly in the airplane as if it's sitting at the gate when it's going 600 miles per hour is the same exact reason why it's irrelevant what you're bringing up.
You want to keep going back to that same example that I already told you is not
Yeah,
even the same
because
because
it's
it's not
Newton's
a
laws of
1,000 miles an hour
motion.
difference where the drone is landing. If that tray table were moving at 1,000 mile an hour difference than where you took off from, that plane would have to fly fucking, all
Oh, no,
different. So
okay, I'm
your
so
drone
glad you brought
would
that up.
not be
Hold on, I'm
landing
so
on a
glad you
surface
brought
that's
that
a
up.
thousand
Hold
miles
on,
an
I'm
hour
so
compared to
glad
where
you
it took
brought that
off
Why
up.
do
from.
you
So,
leave out?
so
Why
Nick,
do you continuously leave out the fact that if the Earth is rotating, the atmosphere is rotating
Hold on.
with
I
the
think I
Earth?
nailed him
So
on. I think he just
a
dug his.
plane would, if a
because it's
plane
not even said to be
moves
in
south
lockstep,
to
bro.
north or
That's
north
why.
to south,
Yeah, because it's not
the
even claimed to be
rotation
in
will
lockstep.
act on the
It's not
rotation
claimed to be
of
in
the
lockstep.
atmosphere will
Let
act
me.
on the plane, accelerating slightly
Right, you want to
sideways.
keep repeating the concept, but the globe doesn't even
But that's
claim
no
that the
problem,
atmosphere
is
is in
there?
lockstep. No, it's
Could
not
I
claimed to
start?
be in lockstep, so there is a problem. There is a
Could I
problem
take?
What
because
is
it's
the
not.
problem?
First of all, it's not claimed to be in lockstep, so there's a problem already. It doesn't work. And even if
Hold
it
on.
So
could move the plane and
how
accelerate it a
far out?
1,000 miles an hour backwards and
Yeah,
carry
how
it
far
as if
out
it's
is it
landing in the
from
opposite
lockstep?
direction, that's a problem. You can imagine it not being a problem, but it doesn't work because the globe doesn't even claim perfect lockstep, right? And it would have to be.
Okay, imagine you had a ball of water and you had a tiny model ship on it, and this ball of water is rotating, and you were moving that boat from the top of the ball towards the middle of the ball, the equator. What would happen? Would the water act as a force sideways on that little ship?
It's non sequitur. Is the ship trying to
No,
land on
it's
the
not. It's
surface?
an analogy. It's
Is
an
the ship
example.
trying to?
Would that
Is the
happen?
ship trying to
Because
make it? Is the ship trying to treat the bottom of the tank it's in as if it's stationary? Is that the comparison you're trying to make?
no, I said a ball
Well, that
made
is not a
of. It's a
comparison.
hypothetical. A ball made up of water, and you have a tiny little model ship on it. You start it on the top, pointing straight southwards or downwards, and this water ball is rotating. What would happen to that little model boat ship as it was moving to the middle of the ball? Would
Do
it
you,
be
do you have do
forced?
you have
Would it
air?
be
Do you have
forced?
currents of water
Would
moving in
it
the
be
opposite?
forced to move in the way of the rotation or not?
Yeah, but do you have currents of water moving in the exact opposite direction, pushing the ship in the
No,
opposite
there's no.
direction, like the
Well,
winds?
but the
There's winds
water would
moving in all
still
directions. Do you
rotate
have
with the
water
ball,
moving in all
wouldn't it?
directions? You have winds moving in all directions. The currents of the
But
air
the
move in
whole
all
of it would
directions, not
still.
just one.
Hang on. The whole of it would still rotate, even if you had local currents. The local currents will move with the
Yeah,
rotation of the
yeah,
ball. Yeah. And
yeah.
what would happen to the ship?
Well, so you're saying
It
that
would.
the average, like there's going to be like a miscellaneous factor that's okay to land on the Earth, like an
No,
average,
this
like,
is
oh, it's
just a
pretty much in
hypothetical
space.
an
We're
example.
going to
But
almost
you
land as
do
if it's
agree. You do
stationary. No,
agree
there's no
that
almost
that
to it.
little model ship
There's no
would.
overall average to this, bro. It's not an average.
You
It's not
you
like more or
agree
less
that
we're
that
going to land
little
on a
model.
stationary surface. We land on a
You
perfectly
would
stationary
agree
surface,
that
not
that
a more
little.
or less
For
stationary
fuck's
surface.
sake, how long-winded you are. You would agree that that little ship in my hypothetical model would change its tangential speed as it went from the top to the ball towards the, call it, equator of the ball.
Yeah, the ship captain would be well
Yeah,
aware of that for
yeah.
sure. He would know that
Well,
he's being
the
accelerated
atmosphere
in
is a
one
fluid.
direction, right? Because he'd have to handle that. The pilot has no idea that he's supposed to be now going 1,000 miles an hour eastward.
The tangential speed will change, and water is a fluid.
1,000 miles an hour.
The atmosphere is a fluid as well. So you would have the exact same phenomena
No. You can't say
on a
exact same because
rotating
the globe
Earth
doesn't claim
with an
exact same.
atmosphere as you
Globe
would
doesn't
on that
even
globe
claim
with
exact same.
water.
Yeah, but
It
you
would
don't
be
even
the
have it.
same.
Even if it works like you
For
hope,
fuck's sake, it would.
they're not claiming exact same. The globe doesn't claim exact same for the atmosphere. So even there, it doesn't
Well,
work, bro.
the principle is the same.
Oh, you want the principle. You're going to
Perspective.
land a plane on a stationary surface based on the principle that it's thought to be the same as the Earth.
Perspective. Could you take a drone off? Could you take that little handheld drone off right at the start of the runway when the plane is not moving? Could you hover that drone in the plane, have that plane take off, get up to 600 miles per hour, and land it right back at the tray table? Even though that
Why are you
drone
going
can't
back
fly.
to that? If you're talking about a closed cabin where there's no wind, where there's no tangential gradient of a surface that he's going to land on, that's 1,000 miles an hour.
But
Why do you keep going back to
it
that as
just
if
took
it's the
off from a
same?
tray
Has
table
nothing
that
to
was
do with
going
it.
1,000 miles per hour
Has
faster than where it
nothing to
took
do
off
with it.
from. It just
Has nothing
landed
to
on
do with it.
even though the drone can only fly at 30 miles per hour, it just landed on a tray table that's going 600 miles per hour faster than it was when it took off from.
It doesn't have anything to do with it because it's the
It's
same
literally the same thing. I
reference
don't see
frame.
how you
No,
can't see that.
no,
I don't see how you can't see
no.
that.
It's not about me not seeing
I
it
don't
because
see how you
no,
can
it's one
understand.
Denial.
reference. No,
He
dude, it's
has
one
to
reference
deny
frame
because
compared to two reference frames.
he wants
The
to claim the
pilot,
Earth
the
is
plane is
stationary.
said to
That's
be
it.
in a separate reference frame. The plane's said to be in a separate reference frame, moving independently. That's the reason you have the conserved momentum idea, so that you can say that the plane was on the Earth and moving with the Earth, and so when it took off, it was still moving at that same speed, so we can land as if it's stationary. The problem is now he's got to land on a different part of the Earth, which is said to be moving twice as fast or 1,000 miles an hour faster, and there's no mechanism to make the plane in perfect sync so he can treat the Earth as stationary. Period. No matter
But
what
there
kind
is
of drone
the
idea you have in your head, it
the
does. It's not
example
even
of the water
comparative, dude.
ball I gave
Not
you.
comparative.
The water ball example I gave you is the principle of how tangential speed of
I
that
get the
ship will
principle,
change as it
bro.
moves. The
The
same will
principle's not
happen.
good enough.
The exact same thing happens with a plane.
No, it's not exactly the same because
Yeah,
you have
yes,
winds
it
going
is.
in all directions. You don't have water going in all directions, right? Plus,
Oh, for
the
fuck's
ship
sake!
the ship
As
captain would
you
know
have
that
been explained
he's
several
got a
times now,
1,000 miles an
you
hour
can have
acceleration. He would have a 1,000 miles
local
an hour
weather
acceleration that
patterns.
he knows he needs to deal with. The ship
You
captain would
can
be
have
very well
local.
aware that his boat is going 1,000 miles an hour faster than when he started.
You can
Right? The
have
pilot
local.
has no idea that the plane's not moving eastward with this rotation at 1,000 miles an hour. The pilot just has no idea that happened. Are you serious that you even think that that's possible?
Why not? If it's the same principle as
Why
that
not? It's just a
the
concept that
water
I
ball
like.
example, because the
Yeah.
atmosphere is a fluid. The atmosphere is a fluid, and
And
you can have
even
local
then,
weather patterns within the whole of the atmosphere, which is rotating with the Earth.
not in sync, not even good enough because the atmosphere is not said to be in perfect sync, and that's not even. It wouldn't even work
So
anyway.
how
But even
far
if it
out
worked
is it?
perfectly, it wouldn't work.
Okay,
Even if it
so
went
how far?
perfectly, it wouldn't work. It
How
doesn't matter how fast or
how
slow, or they're
how
saying the winds
how
are
much
because
out of
it's not in
sync?
sync.
How
They're
much
saying the
out of
winds
sync
are
is it?
because it's not in sync. It can be
How
that
much
it
out of sync
varies,
is it?
right? It varies. It
How
varies. It
much
doesn't.
out of sync is it?
It's not out of sync. The Earth isn't moving,
How much
dude.
out of sync is it?
It's not out of sync because the Earth isn't fucking moving. There's no
How do
instinct to talk about. The Earth is stationary because that's how the planes fucking treat it. Otherwise,
so,
the pilots would have totally different airplanes. They'd have totally different
nope,
training. It would be
nope.
like an aircraft carrier on fucking, amphetamines. It would just be like ridiculous. No way, dude.
In fact, the aircraft carrier is a good example. If you have an aircraft
Yeah, it is a
carrier
good example.
way up
That's why
north,
they have
way up
special
north, hang
training
on,
for
way up north, you have
pilots have to
there's an
have
aircraft
special training.
carrier way up north
Regular pilots don't.
with a
Regular
low
pilots don't
tangential
have that
speed.
training
Dude, can
because
you
they
guys
never
go?
have to deal with a moving surface.
Can
They
you guys
never
go
have to
one?
deal with a
Can
moving
you guys go
surface like
one at a
aircraft
time?
pilots do.
Can you guys go back and forth one at a time? It's almost impossible to hear either side of you, either side of what's being
Yeah,
said.
okay, sorry. That's my fault.
That was like
Well,
a
if you had
solid
an
15
aircraft
minutes of you
carrier
guys
way,
both
oh,
talking.
These
sorry,
guys are like a barrage of guys are just yelling over me and I'm reacting.
well, if you had an aircraft carrier way up north, the tangential speed of that ship is much lower than at the equator, but the wind or the atmosphere is moving with that aircraft carrier. So if they take off in the north, the speed between the aircraft carrier and the atmosphere is the same as it would be at the equator. Even though the tangential speeds of those different positions are totally different.
Yeah, it's non sequitur because the aircraft pilot
No,
has
it's not.
special training. Yeah, it is because the aircraft pilot has special training, right? And he has to land on a moving surface and deal with winds, which is what a regular pilot would have to do if there was a moving surface.
Yeah, 25, 30 knots. Yeah, what's a major difference? Huh?
What are you talking about? 1,000 miles an hour from where he took off from? That's
No,
a major
how
difference
the
for sure.
carrier is moving across the sea.
I'm
So
talking
that
about a
will only
pilot
be
landing
that.
on a
Yeah, no,
surface,
but they
not
would.
the fucking aircraft pilot.
But it
We're
would
talking about
move at
the
30.
real life situation that would happen in real life if the Earth were actually moving.
The aircraft carriers would travel at the same speed in relation to the water they're on.
It doesn't have anything to do
Wouldn't
with
they?
it. We're talking about a surface
Yes,
that's
it
1,000
has
miles an
because
hour faster.
because if they have different tangential speed at the equator and way up north, would that make any difference for the pilots taking off and landing?
Yes, that's my point.
How?
Because it's 1,000 miles an hour surface where he's landing compared to where he took off from, which is
But
0, 200, 300, 400, anywhere in there. Even if he took off at 1,000 mile an hour surface and turned back around and tried to land right back down on that surface, the air is not going to carry him backwards wherever he's going to
the
be.
air is
Even
traveling
if
with
he
the
took
Earth.
off with that conserved momentum, even if he had that 1,000 miles an hour conserved momentum, it still wouldn't work, let alone being
No,
at 0 or
but
500.
hang on,
None of it works. The air does not
hang on.
carry the plane
The
with the
atmosphere,
Earth in
the
perfect sync
atmosphere
so the
will
pilot
move
can
at
treat the
1,000
Earth
miles
as
an hour
station.
as well. The
Well, that's the
atmosphere is
concept. That's the concept. But then you have to have it
yeah.
carrying
So
the
then, what is
plane
your
as he's
problem? I
slowing
don't.
down. No, wait, listen. The pilot's going to be slowing down in the opposite direction, right? Right? He's going to be going against the spin, right?
Why?
Slowing down
Why?
to land on the
Why?
surface because that's how planes fly. They can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, but why does it? It doesn't. It wouldn't change anything if it was flying east or west or north or south compared to
Sure, no, because it has
the
to go
ground.
eastward at 1,000 miles an hour in perfect sync with 1,000 mile an hour rotation. That's the problem.
Well, as I said, two aircraft carriers, one at the equator, one way up north, would have different tangential speed. The winds,
Absolutely,
the
1,000 mile an
the
hour difference.
yes,
Yeah,
the atmosphere in relation to those two carriers would be the same.
nope,
The
not the
plane
same. Not
takes
even
off,
claim to be the same. The
and
globe doesn't even
and
claim for it to be the same.
the
You can't
plane
say it's the
takes
same.
off.
The globe doesn't claim for it to be the same. You can't even say the same. The globe does not claim the atmosphere is the same as the surface. So that claim doesn't even work. And it wouldn't work even if it was perfect because you got the plane going the opposite direction, slowing down against the wind that's supposed to be also carrying him backwards at 1,000 miles an hour so he can treat the Earth as stationary. Dynamics do not add up. Your kinematic concepts can keep you happy with your globe for only so long until this dynamic situation with the pilot and common sense hits you in the face.
So why would the plane slow down? Let's say if it took out at the equator and got them into the air, and we're cruising at I don't know 600 miles, either east, west, or west, or north or south. How would the speed or the ground speed change?
Well, if the Earth are moving, the ground speed wouldn't even be the same because it's in relation to a stationary ground. That's the plane's movement in any direction in relation to a stationary ground. If it was a moving ground with a tangential gradient, that would be a totally different number.
Okay, so if the Earth is spinning with 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, and the plane takes off and fly eastward, do
Okay.
the ground speed of the plane change?
Well, you're talking about if you conserve the momentum at the 1,000 mile an
No,
hour.
I'm asking you because I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Well, because the
So you
Earth would
think?
be moving.
So you think if the Earth was rotating and the atmosphere was rotating with it, and the plane took up off at equator, flying at a steady pace eastward, with no headwind or tailwind, the ground speed of that plane will change.
Well, are you talking about a moving ground or are you talking about the stationary ground?
Yeah, I'm talking about a rotating Earth.
Okay, well then the rotating Earth would be a totally different reading because the plane's movement is in relation to a stationary ground, not a moving ground.
Well, what's the difference if it took up
It's a
1,000
big
miles
difference.
an
Big
hour?
difference, bro.
If it
Big difference.
took off with a tangential speed of 1,000 miles an hour, it gets out to cruising speed at 600 knots. Yeah, it would still keep 600 knots speed relative to the ground, wouldn't it?
Well, it wouldn't, no, because the air friction would lessen the conserved momentum right away. But
No,
if that's
forget
the
that.
reason I make the example, that he took off at 500 mile an hour tangential velocity, and you can keep all that conserved momentum, even though it wouldn't be moving eastward with the Earth at 500 miles per hour very long once he gets in the air, because friction would take away from that conserved momentum from being on the Earth right away. But you can have it all. The problem is he's not
Friction,
going to
why?
keep it all.
So it doesn't have
Friction of
engines,
the air,
so it doesn't
right?
have engines which can
The conserved momentum
compensate
is
for
that.
the friction. So
No,
you
the
say
conserved
that the
momentum
airplane
always
is slowing
stays.
down in the air?
No, I'm saying that the conserved momentum that you pretend is there when it takes off at the 1,000 or 500 mile an hour rotation, right? Because it tapers down, right? So if he flew from that area to where it has to be 1,000 miles an hour eastward rotation, he's not going to have the conserved momentum to match it like you think about when he's at the equator, right? So you can't imagine it away on this one. It would have to
No, but
there would have
the
to be a
thing here
500
is,
mile per
as
hour,
has been explained
exactly
to you,
500 mile per hour eastward
well,
rotation added to the plane's momentum, which there's
this
no
has been
mechanism for
explained
you to
to you
name.
several
Even the
times now.
atmosphere wouldn't work that way.
This has been explained to you several times, like the
No,
example
it's
I
not
gave
about
of
it
the
being
water
explained
ball.
to me. I've
Because
explained to you that your answers aren't even good enough,
why do
even
you
if it
always
was a
talk all the
perfect
time?
rotation. Even
Why
if
do
it
you
was
all?
a perfect atmosphere, because you're saying it's been explained to me as if you had an answer, which you didn't. An atmosphere is not even said to be in lockstep, right? Even if it worked perfectly, it still wouldn't work. But it's not even said to be in lockstep. So what you explain to me
Why
doesn't even
wouldn't it
work
work? Why
because
doesn't
it's
it
not
work?
said to be in lockstep. It's not said to be in lockstep. The plane
So
treats it as
what?
perfectly stationary.
So what's how big is this difference in lockstep?
We're talking about 0 to 1,000 mile an hour, whatever it is.
I think can I add something? I think your numbers are wrong. New perspective.
It's
I think it's
1,040 at the
can
equator to
I
be more
say
exact.
can I say something, please, without interruption? That would be awesome.
Sure, go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so because I think you're missing a very very important point in the globe model. The Earth is also orbiting the Sun. So the Earth is orbiting the Sun with 66,500 miles per hour. So during daytime on equinox at solar noon, the Earth is or the equator on the day side of the Earth is moving in the opposite direction of the rotation or of the orbit of the Sun.
Exactly.
So that
Yeah,
means
that's a
the
crazy thing. Why does
actual
that have
plane
anything to do
on
with
the
it, though?
equator, hear me out, please. The actual plane on the equator would travel 65,500 miles per hour, counterclockwise if you look from north to the solar system. And during midnight, it would travel 67,500 miles per hour. So actually, it would change 2,000 miles per hour speed when it's
Right.
rotating around the sun.
I
So I
know
think
about that.
you have
It
converted
makes
me
it
to
worse
flat
for
Earth.
you.
I think you're
Yeah,
totally right.
it makes it even worse. You're right. I'm not surprised that you would realize that it's not moving when that kind of claim's made.
Yeah,
It can't be
no. I think
changing in 12 hours,
I think it's moving.
2,000
I think
miles an hour in 12
you're just
hours.
not
And you're right.
capable of
You're right about
checking
this.
reference frames,
Yeah, see
right?
that's the
You can
problem. Is that
drive.
claim right there was
You
made by
can
the
drive with a
CERN physicist I
bicycle.
talked to.
You can drive with a bicycle on the deck of an aircraft carrier from the back to the front on full speed. And with the same effort, you can drive from the front to the back on the aircraft carrier with the same speed. because you are
Yeah,
relative
because
to
the
the
Earth is
ground of
stationary.
the aircraft carrier, and that's where you are traveling. This
Yeah,
is a
because the Earth
reference
is
frame. You're
stationary.
just
There's no
not
problem with that.
getting reference frames.
No, I get it completely, and it would
No,
totally not work because you'd have a
no.
2,000 mile an hour change within 12 hours. I talked to a stern physicist who explained the exact same thing to me. I'll put the link right now in the chat where he was saying there'd be a 2,000 mile an hour rotation, a change in tangential, or no, it'd be a velocity change, right? A vector
Yes,
change of velocity.
yes,
Over 12 hours, you would have a
yes,
2,000 mile an hour vector change if it
yes.
were a globe, which we know it's not, because otherwise there would be a
So
problem.
what would that be per hour? If it's 2,000 miles per hour over 12 hours, how much is it per hour?
Hold on, I'm trying to find this video. What does it matter?
So it's 166 miles per hour the velocity change. Because it's
In the opposite
2,000 miles
direction.
per
Yeah,
hour, it's
that's
2,000 miles per
crazy.
hour over 12 hours, so 2,000 divided by 12. So that means an acceleration from 0 to 166 miles per hour in 1 hour. Let's break it down to
Yeah,
some usable speed. So like let's divide it by 2. That would mean 80. I think even so, I don't know where you're living, but because you're always talking miles per hour, I assume USA, maybe also England, I don't know.
yeah.
Let's say 80 miles per hour is something that you may have driven once. So you take not a quarter mile or so to accelerate to 80, you take half an hour to accelerate to 80 miles per hour. So we could even divide it by 30. That means you take 1 minute to accelerate from 0 to 3 miles per hour. So if you
Yeah,
just
it's
start
funny that you're
walking,
trying to make this as a point for your side because it's actually worse.
no, it's not worse. Do you
Why?
get how ridiculously low these accelerations are?
No, because we're not moving, bro. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
reason it doesn't
That,
make a difference. We're not
that's the
moving.
same circular reasoning
We're
that
not, we're
Jin brings up.
stationary.
You
Otherwise, it
cannot
would be
work
a
on a
problem.
globe because we are living on a flat Earth. That's Jin's
No,
argument,
no,
and
it's
you're
stationary, just
arguing
like it seems.
exactly the
What
same
you're
way.
what you're saying makes okay. I just put the link in there. The stern physicist Franco that I was talking to about planes tried to change it to. Well, you have a girl with a balloon at the equator, and you know that over 12 hours there would be 1,000 miles an hour in the opposite direction. 2,000.
2,000.
It would actually be
2,000.
2,000 mile an hour change
Yeah.
over a 12-hour period, as if that was like a point for him when it would be like, dude, of course you're not moving, you're not having a vector change of acceleration of 2,000 miles an hour standing there with the balloon. That, oh, because we don't feel that, then anything you're saying must be like also very slow because you don't get reference frames. That's ridiculous, dude. We're not, the girl with the balloon is not moving 2,000 mile an hour in 12 hours the opposite direction, dude. It's insane to even, that's a concept, but that's what it would have to be if we were going 67,000 mile an hour around the sun, which makes your whole globe thing even more ridiculous. I even made a GIF to visually explain this to anybody else because it's a globe debunk that you're bringing up, not a globe proof.
Yeah, it might be okay in some reference frames, but definitely one of those reference frames does not compute.
You have to have an absolute reference frame. That it's relativity tardation these people get into. Just think about the reference frames, and then it's okay. We can kinematically think about the math, and then we know the globe's moving, so that 2,000 miles an hour would be felt, right? But it's not. So that means that no acceleration should be felt because there's a 2,000 miles an hour change right at the equator every single 12 hours of the day. As if that makes the globe more believable instead of less.
And what's the acceleration? Because that's what you're going to feel. If there's a major change in acceleration,
That's
that's
what
what
you're
you should
saying.
feel.
You're saying there's a 2,000 mile an acceleration change. at the equator. That's the claim. If we're going
Yeah,
around
so
the
that
sun,
means
if you
you
break it down,
accelerate from
if you
0
break
to
it
80
down and you
miles
would
an
make
hour
it
in half an
linear,
hour. Yeah,
yeah.
you're gonna feel that, huh?
You had
So
a car
even
I'm
that
talking
if
about
it
accelerated
feeling
that
it.
would be,
slow,
if it would be
you
linear,
wouldn't
it's
drive it.
2 miles per hour over 1 minute. So accelerating to 2 miles over 1 minute. So that's super quick.
Yeah,
True.
yeah, that's a lot of acceleration. You probably would feel it if we were on a globe.
Of course.
Of course. We're not
Yeah.
on a globe, though, so good thing.
You're right. Earth cannot be round because it's flat.
Well, you said it, not me. I mean, what do you see? What do you observe? Like,
But
it's
these are your
ridiculous to think
arguments.
that the Earth is as it seems. It's just stationary and planar like it seems. Oh, that's crazy.
Your argument is just Earth cannot be a globe because it's flat. That's your argument.
That's absolutely not my argument. I just schooled everybody in here about how planes couldn't even land for a very
Oh
good
yeah,
reason.
true.
No, you didn't.
Your
You're
second argument
completely
is Earth is
misunderstanding
flat
the
because
concept.
I don't
Oh
understand
yeah, you're just
motion.
misunderstanding that I had no answer.
I totally misrepresent you. Your second argument was Earth cannot be a globe because I don't understand motion. That's true.
Yeah, because I don't understand motion where I just told you there'd be no way for a plane to be fucking landing on a 1,000-mile-an-hour surface when it didn't have the considerable momentum or any kind of mechanism to push the plane in that direction to begin with or carry the plane in that direction as he's landing in the opposite direction. You don't have any fucking answer for that.
Okay,
None of you. None of you ever have, none of you ever will, because the Earth is stationary. Otherwise, the ground speed would be totally different. It wouldn't be in
thanks
relation to
for
a moving
bringing more
ground, not
evidence to
a
my point.
stationary ground. The plane moves in any direction in relation to a stationary Earth. If it was a moving Earth with a tangential gradient, that number wouldn't even be the same. So don't say I
You're,
don't have a point or don't
you're just
understand it.
you're just supporting more my point. How
Oh
ridiculous
yeah,
you don't
what's your
understand
point?
motion.
Okay,
My
so
point is
explain
you
to me
don't
how the
understand it,
pilot.
and
How,
you're confirming
explain
and
to me how. Okay, so
supporting
you
and
didn't. You
proving
didn't. You
that
had a chance
claim
once.
again and again and again.
Yeah, just saying I don't understand is you're out in your head maybe, right? Because you don't have an answer. Give me the answer. How's the plane in sync, perfect sync, to be landing on a 1,000-mile-an-hour surface when he has no aim, no direction, and no mechanism to push the plane in that direction or carry that plane in that direction, and he's landing in the opposite direction, slowing down to land on what he treats as a perfectly stationary Earth. You don't have you don't even have a perfectly rotating atmosphere to even claim. So you have no answer and then acting like I don't understand?
Why don't we have an in-sync atmosphere?
Because the Earth is not fucking moving.
How do you know that?
Because the planes couldn't land if it was. Here's my point.
How do you know you're not just misunderstanding the concept?
Because I just went through it and I've been through this argument 100 times with even a stern physicist. None of you have anything but think about reference frames. Well, you just don't understand because I can't give you an answer or whatever else they try to say to get out of the idea that the plane would have to be moving in perfect sync and there's no mechanism to make that happen.
No, why does
what I heard
why
was
does it
him
need
break it
to
down.
move in?
What I
Yeah,
heard
I'm
was him
sorry.
break it down very clearly and show just how ridiculously slow that the plane would be changing. Like he broke it all the way down to what was it, 30 miles, going 30 miles per hour in a minute. If you had a car like that, you would even hardly know the car was accelerating at all if you had a car that went that slow.
It's not about whether he
Two
know it.
miles,
Maybe you came
two
in
miles
late.
per hour
Maybe
in
you
a
came
minute.
in late. It's not about how much that the change would be. It's that there's no mechanism to make that happen perfectly. The pilot
But
has nothing to
there
do
is
with it.
though.
He's going forward at 100 miles an hour. Now the plane has to be moving at 1,000 miles an hour eastward in perfect sync. Backwards as he's going forward and slowing down in a westward or west southwest or at any angle. It has to be moving perfectly with that rotation, which is 1,000 mile an hour or 500 mile an hour faster than where he took off from. There's nothing to make that happen.
What? Nothing to make that happen.
I would
What
try
are you
Well, what do
saying?
you think? There's not a perfect lockstep atmosphere. That was your
Why
only
does it?
claim. So
Why
even
does it
that
have
claim
to
doesn't
be a
work
perfect? Why does it have to
because
be
he
a
treats it
perfect?
as perfectly stationary.
Why does the atmosphere has to be in perfect lockstep with the
Because he
rotation of
treats
the
it
Earth?
as perfectly stationary. He treats it as not moving at all,
It does.
not even a
It doesn't
smidge.
matter. It doesn't matter
It does
because
matter
as
because the
they gave
wheels
the
would break off
example
if it was
earlier,
a
if you
smidge.
started flying
No
from North
winds.
Pole
Winds
to the
have nothing
equator,
to do with it. Winds
Jesus
moving
Christ!
and the earth moving are totally different. If he was dealing with the earth moving and winds, that would be two things to deal with. It has nothing to do with crosswinds. The winds would have to be carrying him backwards, according to you. What if you have westward
Can
winds
I
pushing him the
ask you a
other direction?
question? Can I ask you a different question? Could
You
you
don't have an
let
answer
other
for the first
people?
one, obviously. You're just admitting that, I guess.
Could you
You
let
don't
other
give them
people?
you don't give people long enough time to answer perspective. So at least give
Yeah,
other
that's
people a
what I
bit
Go
of
was going
ahead.
to ask.
even.
Yeah,
Go
that's what I
ahead.
was going to
Go
ask
ahead
him.
with your
If
question.
he could be quiet and stop
I can be
interrupting
quiet.
people all
I'm
the
done here
time.
anyway.
You
You
guys
guys
have
don't
to
have
be
an
in the
answer.
right spirit in order to conversate on these topics. You got if you're not in the right spirit, even if you're saying truthful things, this is not going to work. This is not the right spirit.
It's already over, bro.
If it's rotating or not,
You
like it
came in
should
on
be,
the
nothing
aftermath.
good is going to come out of this because the right
It's
spirit
already
is.
over. It's already over. I don't know if it was good or bad, but the Earth isn't moving because the plane's treated as stationary. So whether it's good or bad doesn't
No,
matter.
the Earth is moving because the atmosphere is moving with the Earth.
No, I already told you that doesn't work because they don't even claim a perfect
Oh,
lockstep
it
atmosphere.
definitely work. It definitely
It wouldn't
work.
work. No, you're just going back to that
Yep.
as if it
Oh,
didn't
I
get
have a question
explained to
for
you. They
Stefan.
don't claim a perfect lockstep atmosphere. They do not
It
claim
doesn't
that.
have to be perfect lockstep.
It does because the pilot treats the Earth as perfectly stationary. And
Stefan,
it
I have a
wouldn't work
question for
anyway
you when you
because
come
you got
over.
winds going in all directions. You can't separate the winds from the atmosphere.
Uh,
The winds moving the plane and the atmosphere moving the plane. How do you separate those two?
Well, as he gave you an example, if you fly from the North Pole to the equator, the rotation of the atmosphere will act on the plane, so it will slowly accelerate towards 1,000 miles per hour tangential speed. No fucking problem.
Yeah,
No, it is a big problem because you got westward winds moving heavier one day and not the other day. So you're saying the atmosphere is going to compensate heavier one day and not the other day? It's
Well,
like the atmosphere has a
as I
mind of its
also
own to make the plane in sync. There's no
exactly.
average
as I
that's going to work.
also
You
told
can't
you,
say
you
the
can have
atmosphere. You can't
local.
even go with more or less. The pilot doesn't treat the Earth as more or less stationary. It's not an
How
average.
do
You
you
can't just
separate?
mathematically think, oh, it's almost about in sync, and we got eastward winds and westward winds, but it's always going to move the plane so it's a perfect lockstep. No, that isn't. Not even the globe claim,
So
dude.
you
There's no
think the
answer for this.
plane never
The
adjusts in the
wind,
wind?
yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
wind
plane, the
moves with
pilot doesn't even have to
the
have, the pilot
rotation.
doesn't have to have, listen, the pilot doesn't have to have a destination, right? He's not adjusting for a ground path or
New
any
perspective.
destination. He can fly in big
New
loops all over the place, land wherever he wants.
perspective.
He doesn't have to worry about adjusting for anything. He just treats the Earth as stationary no matter where he ends up.
New perspective. Can I
Yeah,
ask something that you asked before and they haven't answered you yet? How do they separate the atmosphere from the winds? Please
They
tell me
can't.
how you
There is
do
no
that.
answer for that. There's no
Yeah,
answer for that.
they can't answer that, and so their whole model is fucked.
And it wouldn't work anyway. Even if the atmosphere were more or less moving with the Earth, more or less isn't good enough.
It just needs to give us a demonstration of a separation of the atmosphere and the winds. What is the atmosphere? It would have to be moving in perfect lockstep. Otherwise,
What do you
the
mean
rockets
with
take over.
separation? Can you explain your question because I don't understand the question?
Well, the atmosphere would have to be moving in almost perfect lockstep with the rotation of the Earth at a linear velocity. It would have to be so
And
that
by
you
the
can
way,
treat
almost
climate
perfect isn't
energy.
almost perfect. Not even good enough, bro. Almost
Yeah,
perfect.
it
It
has
has
to
to
be
be so
perfect. But I
perfect,
mean,
That's
even
and
if
you'd have to
you
have
want
no
to give them,
winds moving it
to
in
me.
the
Even
opposite direction.
hold on. To
It's
me,
not
that's as
perfect.
silly. That's as silly as saying a fish can't swim in a flowing river because there's currents moving in that river,
No, it
different
has
from the
nothing to
way
do
the
with
river's
Okay, so
flowing.
you
It's
know
the
that the
same
atmosphere.
concept. That's what you're trying to
fish.
say.
Okay,
Fish are trying
so
to go to the bottom of the surface and treat the surface as if it's
They do all
stationary
the time.
with wheels on it that it has to be in perfect line with the. There's nothing. There's the total non sequitur. You got plus the fish in a thing that's moving doesn't have winds or currents moving in the opposite direction. You can't go with ships
All the
or
fish has to do is to
any
adjust
kind of
its,
water
yeah.
analogy, any kind of water analogy or plane or drone analogy. Nothing works the same. You just have to think about it that way to keep your globe in your head.
I think
All
you're
the fish
right,
have to do is
but
adjust its
the
speed and
atmosphere.
angle to be stationary in relation to the bottom of the river, and he can settle down. No big deal.
No big
Of
deal. You
course
just
he
got
can.
a big tube, a big metal tube with people in it. And the winds are going to make you sink. Don't worry, it's going to be safe.
Actually,
This is where
the
the globe
atmosphere
heads they
actually the
get really
atmosphere is
confused.
not in
They
sync with the
don't
globe.
get-
Yeah, it's not in
And
sync
we have a
anyway, right?
name. So that the
Listen,
atmosphere is not in sync with the globe, and we have a name for this out of sync situation.
yeah,
You know how
I'll
we
tell you
call it?
what.
Do you
These
know how we
globes can
call the
move.
out of sync situation of the atmosphere with the Earth?
Yeah, it's a made-up fairy tale. A
No,
vacuum
no, no,
with
no.
like
That's what I
There
call
is
it.
there is an actual word for the not syncing of the atmosphere with the Earth.
Yeah,
Do you know how
winds.
it's called?
Winds. They call it winds.
Correct.
Yeah, well, the problem with the globe heads is they think that fluid dynamics is exactly the same ratio as it is in a river or an ocean in the atmosphere. It's not. You don't get confused with these two things. Don't get fluid dynamics and put all your rules from the fluid dynamics in an ocean or
So,
in liquid into the atmosphere of the Earth. They're totally different things.
so the
Yeah, it wouldn't work
atmosphere is
anyway.
fluid and a river is
Uh,
fluid.
Yeah,
They're
how
both not
comes that
fluid
they are totally
dynamics.
different things?
Back to the river, as if water has anything to do with it. You don't have water moving in the opposite direction, pushing the fish or the boat.
But how comes that you say fluid dynamics in water is or in a river is something different than fluid dynamics in air?
Because it's
Because
not
you
the
have
same.
winds going in the
I
opposite
didn't ask
direction. You don't
you.
have currents.
New
You don't have
perspective. Can you
currents
shut
going
up
in
for
the
a
opposite
second?
direction.
New perspective. Can you shut up for a
I
second?
thought you
Can
were
you
asking
let
me.
other people also talk,
Yeah,
please?
I'm about to leave. I'm about to leave anyway, but I thought you were asking me. Sorry about
You're
that.
interrupting all the time, even your own people.
I thought you were asking me, bro. That's the reason I answered.
No.
Go ahead, whoever you were asking. I don't know who it was.
That was a good conversation. I did have a question for the Globers here, Snooze or Stefan or anyone
But I
else.
think Lee. Wait a second, Lee.
Oh yeah, okay.
Did you make the claim that there is a difference between fluid dynamics in rivers and in air? Or who did
Most
make?
potently, you cannot say that the atmosphere around the Earth, yeah, you cannot say that that is exactly the same concept as currents moving through the ocean or a river,
Why not?
because they're two totally different materials, two totally different things.
No, why not? Why is that the case? So you're just
This is how
explaining your one claim with another claim. So what is
this is
different
how
in
this is
water
how
and
modern
air?
models try to fool everybody to make them think that fluid dynamics applies in the atmosphere just as it does in the water and the oceans and the rivers.
So
This is the big con.
so
You've got to
you know that gases and liquids are both fluids, right? And that there is a term of fluid dynamics.
yeah. And
And
what's
concepts like drag or friction and stuff like that are all part of these fluid dynamics.
what is the composition of outer space?
The composition of outer space,
Yeah, compared to our atmosphere, what's the difference?
uh, less mass.
Do you think that the vacuum of space cares about our little atmosphere? Do you think it's really got feelings for our atmosphere and it's like protecting it, and like there's this magical thing that you can't measure called gravity and you can't prove it, but there's this magical barrier that allows this gradient to just taper off just ever so smoothly and slightly, just perfectly, so that this massive vacuum of space doesn't care about our little vacuum
So you
chamber.
think vacuums
So
suck?
that's the one thing. So you're completely deflecting to a completely different topic because you think vacuum sucks, and you think this is a more relevant topic because you don't want to answer my questions. Where's the difference
Well,
between
because
fluid
the,
dynamics in water and fluid
I'm
dynamics in air?
telling you
Okay,
one
wait,
thing.
real quick. I found the GIF that's your example you're talking about with the 2,000 mile change in vector at the equator. I got to go, but the GIF that I just put in there is for any flat earther. It's a great globe debunk that Snooze brought up. I don't know why he brought it up, but it'd be a 2,000 mile an hour vector change of acceleration at the equator for anybody just standing there. So that's why he thinks it's a good point because you should feel that. Well, yeah, if you were on a globe, the 2,000 mile vector change would make a difference. But there's a little animation there that kind of explains the concept. We're going around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour. Vacuum sucking and all that wouldn't even matter. None of those points. I mean, it's all completely ridiculous. But nobody had any answers about the planes again. Could I?
Yeah, and I actually agree with this GIF.
Stationary. The only way you can land on it is because it's stationary. You don't have the plane being pushed back by the wind backwards at 1,000 miles an hour when you
Can you
started with
come to your
zero
point
tangential
three?
velocity. The only reason we talk about conserve momentum or we talk about Coriolis or anything, because it's detached from the Earth, right? So if you want to say he's going to land at the same latitude, you say it's because he was on the ground and he's traveling at 500 miles an hour or whatever. That's why he was able to land as if it's stationary, not because the air is pushing him with the Earth. And the atmosphere is not even said to be in lockstep, and it would have to be in perfect lockstep to even imagine something like the wind keeping him in sync at all, and it's not even in sync enough with the globe plane. So it wouldn't work even if it was perfect, and we didn't have westward wind going heavier one day, and then having that eastward wind compensate perfectly over it. It's ridiculous and asinine. It breaks your globe to try to
So that
justify it when you got people in the air in a big tube, a big metal tube. To imagine that the wind is carrying this big metal tube backwards so that the pilot can be safe to land on what he considers always to be a stationary ground is asinine.
Booked a flight today, Heathrow to JFK. Headed west southwest, cause there ain't no better way. Gonna find that old Coriolis, they say she's hidden in the winds. But that just can't be if we rotate east, tangential gradient. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis must be hidden in the winds. But the earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been. And we never could land safely with that tangential gradient. And we all know every pilot treats the earth as motionless. So to think it must be moving is just insane, you must confess. But please don't get offended if this song makes too much sense. Just thank God that landing's easy with no tangential gradient in the winds. They said she'd just be hidden in the winds. But the earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been. And we never could land safely with that tangential gradient. So here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. So here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis just ain't hidden in these winds. And the earth ain't moving faster with the further south we go. So thank God we won't be crashing when those wheels hit down below. land on a surface that is moving with a tangential gradient. Yes, here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis just ain't hidden in these winds. And their earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been. And thank God we won't be crashing when we touch down at the end. And thank the Lord, Earth is stationary, or we never safely land on a surface that is moving. There's no tangential gradient.
Yeah, just saying I don't understand is you're out in your head maybe, right? Because you don't have an answer. Give me the answer. How's the plane in sync, perfect sync, to be landing on 1,000-mile-an-hour surface when he has no aim, no direction, and no mechanism to push the plane in that direction or carry that plane in that direction, and he's landing in the opposite direction, slowing down to land on what he treats as a perfectly stationary Earth. You don't even have a perfectly rotating atmosphere to even claim. So you have no answer and then acting like I don't understand?